This is your Monday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. I'll be joined in a little bit by Timberwolves and Lynx CEO Ethan Casson to talk about the return of fans at Target Center. Monday night, both the Wolves and the Wild will have fans in the stands for the first time all season, for the first time in more than a calendar year. Twins, of course, open on Thursday at home and will have fans at Target Field as well. So much going on this past weekend, though. Lots of amazing games, big news stories, things of that nature. Patrick Reusse is going to help me break that all down, and he joins me right now. This is Monday. Patrick Reusse is on Daily Delivery with me right now. Patrick, on this show, a lot of times my kind of standard line when I'm not thinking about it really, or just kind of like going with the flow of the show, is to say we have a lot to talk about today, but oh man, we have a lot to talk about right now. It's just
Yes.
the time of year, and there were some games this weekend and some just news that cannot be ignored. So let's hop into that. Maybe we'll talk Twins off the jump here, and then we'll get into some Jalen Suggs, Paige Becker stuff, and got a couple I've got a Wolves thought for you that I think you'll like. But Twins, boy, I guess Rocco is the right man for this job, this manager job, Patrick, because boy, after they lost that opener on Thursday, I'd have been breaking bats and storming through the clubhouse. And he's like, yeah, you win some, you lose some. We keep playing like this, so probably going to be fine. And you know what? They were.
But I'll give him credit for this. He said we have to throw to the right base. So which for him is a rip, which for him is saying, listen, if this idiot pitcher hadn't thrown to second base, we would have won this game.
Right.
With Rocco, you gotta take your little barbs in his team and expand them 20%, 20 times, because he's not going to flat out say it. But he made sure to mention that Colomé throwing to second base basically cost him the game. You win that game unless he throws the ball to second base, because you're 3 runs ahead. You have 2 outs and a runner on second base, and you don't have to go out there and pitch. And that I thought that was a horrible performance all around, even though they had that game won in Thursday, and they weren't good in the field really the whole weekend. But boy, the little fella being your leadoff hitter is really, he was on base 9 times. He's a tough out. He's the old time tough out, foul balls and stuff. And played he that one little roller on Thursday, he didn't make the play on. But outside of that, he played good third base too. So
Reyes, he was on base all 5 times too on Sunday, I think.
Yes, right. 9 times over the weekend, 5 times yesterday.
Yeah.
And that gives him a pretty good shot. But boy, the level of depression of Twins fans about the third inning when Buxton's out of the lineup, and you're saying, I start thinking, what did he do? He didn't hit anything. He didn't run into anything. He didn't twist anything. So then you're thinking, COVID protocols. They're just saying he's sick. No, but nothing about the migraines, which he had in the past.
Right.
But that guy, in addition to all his other problems, Mike, he gets flu. He's sick. He gets all this stuff all the time. But man, are they a lot better when he plays?
Oh yeah, no doubt. So it was a relief kind of when they said, non-COVID illness. It's like, okay, that's about as good. It's about as good as the scenario could be when you take a guy out in the middle of a game.
Well, plus it's Rocco world too. If a guy says in the third inning to Gardy 10 years ago, I'm not feeling too good, he'll say, hey, get this guy a bottle of Gatorade. Let's go get out there. Rocco is, Rocco encourages you not to play if you're not feeling 100%. So it's a completely different world. But boy, Saturday night, was Brios good.
Oh man, I was gonna.
He was throwing great, and who else is throwing great? Taylor Rogers is back.
He's got more. He's got like an extra mile or 2 on his fastball so far.
And that slider is bite.
Yeah,
last year it was kind of sailing up there.
Right.
It's got the bite back on it. He was unhittable. And I had somebody on Twitter say to me, well, it's because he's not in a closer role. He can cut loose. No, his stuff last year was not good. This year, his stuff is back to where it was 2 years ago. And and I think you're seeing a little resolve from him, and also the idea that what difference does it make if I close or not? But he's him throwing well was, I thought, one of the best things we saw all weekend. That's for sure. And also Hansel Robles is who is, what was his ERA last year? 10, right?
Something like that. It wasn't good. I mean, they were counting on this. They saw something there that not a lot of us saw, but so far it's been pretty good.
Well, he'd been fairly good, and then he had in the mini season he was terrible. And I don't know, to some degree, everything that happened in the mini season we have to take as a grain of salt, probably. But
right,
yeah, I mean, we know this. Arise, even if Donaldson comes back, he's gonna get 550 plate appearances.
He's got to. He's one of their best. He's got to. He's one of their best hitters.
You know what else, Mike? He's in better shape. He was a little chubby when he came back the second time, and for the second camp, and he wasn't moving as well as he had been, and they didn't like what they saw from him at second base last year in the field, he came back with a lot of resolve this year, in better shape again, and he can hit. So that's a big boost for them, and it also will quiet the craze that we should have had Kirilloff up here from opening day. So one reason they didn't is they thought he'd be playing left field for him. So
yeah, and two more encouraging signs. Not to be too cheerful about the weekend, but I think overall it was. I mean, aside from the Donaldson injury and the Buxton scare, you had Sano going opposite field yesterday and had taken some decent at bats through the whole series. I think Garver went opposite field yesterday too. So, if you're just talking big picture with the lineup and you're worried about certain guys, those two certainly are at the forefront. It's one hit, it's one home run, but lineup has been a little bit better than I thought it would be. I know they didn't score a ton of runs 2 nights ago, but if they put up 5 in the opener, which is usually plenty, should have been plenty if they threw to the right base, like you said, and then Sunday they kind of put it all together.
Here's what we have to realize is when we look at Snow, we look at everybody. The accumulated batting average in the major leagues this year, with the way pitching is now and the way and how many they use and everything, probably won't exceed 240. So everybody you see, we basically have to subtract, add 20 points to everybody's batting average when we look back 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it is now a pitching dominated game, unless you get some reliever out there who they're going to let get pounded sometime. It's going to be a low scoring game all summer. And I guess we have to concede that Sano is going to strike out 180 times and take what you can get when he doesn't strike out.
Well, we're going to see the lower half of the rotation here pretty soon, and then they come home Thursday for the opener. Boy, I hope
looks like rain.
Yeah, I know.
Like
happens. I feel like this happens every year where they go on the road and it's beautiful to start the year. Then they come home and it's like, 60% chance of rain. I'm sure Dave St. Peter's just sitting in his house, like just biting his fingernails, and is like, come on.
Friday looks okay. Maybe they could,
they'll get it in. It's warm enough at least.
All right, but yeah, this wouldn't have been a bad weekend to be home for baseball.
No,
right? Man, it was great.
That'd have been pretty good. It was a good weekend to watch basketball too, Patrick. I don't know how much you watched of both the men's and the women's Final Four, and obviously the men's championship game, Baylor Gonzaga, which should be really good again tonight. But man, Jalen Suggs, the sequence in that semifinal with the block shot,
and the pass,
and then obviously the shot in overtime, which 2 steps inside of half court to win the game. I mean, what a game, first of all, and then what a performance by a Minnesota player.
Well, let me say this. I virtually have hated every college basketball game I've watched this year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They were terrible. It was terrible college basketball. Once in a while, you'd see Illinois play really well or somebody, but it was terrible. But that game, the Gonzaga UCLA game, was one of the best I've ever seen all night. The way UCLA hung in there. this coach of theirs is great, Mick Cronin.
Yep.
Very bad mask wearer, but beyond that, he's really great. And they ran some great stuff to keep getting that kid open. And finally, Gonzaga got it into Suggs' head. Follow this guy, because he let him. When he let him make that three, when he left the defender, and he would have left the shooter and made that three. I was about halfway through a tweet saying, "Nice going, Suggs," and then I said, "I'll just hang in here a minute and see." And then he ended up winning the game for him. But it is. I mean, I know we've given it a lot of publicity, but there's some things going on here right now in Minnesota that are incredible. One being St. Cloud State and Mankato State. Yeah. Two teams, as I'm right about this for tomorrow, who used to play against each other outdoors.
Right.
In the, are now playing in the semifinals. And the other is the state of Minnesota has produced in 1 year the two best freshman basketball players in the country.
Yes.
Beckers.
Yeah.
And
Suggs.
And Jalen Suggs. It's unbelievable.
And they might have the best men's player next year too, with Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
He's number one recruit.
I haven't seen a lot of them. I saw more Suggs than I did him.
Yeah.
But I mean, Minnesota having these two players being raved about nationally is incredible. It's just because we were never, even at our best, Kevin McHale was, hey, there's this big tall kid from Hibbing, and he's a decent player. And, there's, Khalid El-Amin is probably the closest on the national level because he went to UConn and then they won a national championship. But he's not as good as he was. As good as he was, he is not as good as this kid.
No.
And if Page could come out of college, and Suggs will come out of college, Minnesota high school could get two Minnesota kids 1 year out of high school could be the number one draft choice in each of their sports.
It's amazing.
It is. I don't know if Suggs will go first because
Cunningham's pretty good.
I love Cunningham. But, I mean, he's going to go top three.
Yeah.
And she's like the phenomenon now. She had her hands full with the Arizona kid. But, she'll probably win at least a couple national titles while she's there, because they haven't won since 2016.
It's a drought. It's like when the Yankees don't win a World Series for a few years. It becomes a drought.
Yes, it does. Yeah. The Yankees didn't play in one in the 2010s.
Yeah, that's right.
The first time since the 1910s that they went a decade without playing in the World Series. That's another fact. But
that's
anyway,
amazing.
The basketball game was fantastic. There's no doubt about it. Now, my streaming service didn't provide me with Channel 45, and I never went through the hyperventilation of trying to figure out how to watch the state high school hockey tournament. But I don't know what our reviews were on that. How many people they let in?
I can't remember I think it's all kind of like in this, quarter, 20% capacity zone. So I'm sure it was probably, probably whatever they can do for the Wild was probably about what they could do for high schools, I think. And that sounded like that two-way final between was it Eden Prairie and Lakeville. I think that sounded like it was pretty good, the double overtime game in that.
Lee Smith has been out at Eden Prairie a long time. Hell of a guy. Really good
I love
guy.
Lee.
I was glad to see him win. He's, he's one of those coaches you can call up and you can get a quote. Then you can get the real quotes after.
Yes.
He's a very candid fellow, great guy. And to survive that long in suburban hockey where expectations are high, congratulations to you, because it's not easy.
No,
it's not easy. Kurt Giles has done it in Edina, and Lee Smith has done it in Eden Prairie, and a few others have, but it's not easy. That's for sure.
Patrick, I got one more thought for you on the basketball realm. Let's switch to the pros for a second. Karl-Anthony Towns played 44 minutes on, I think it was Saturday night on the second half of a back-to-back. What would be happening right now if Tom Thibodeau was still the head coach and Cat had played 44 minutes on the second half of a back-to-back?
We'd be killing him. The minutes police would be going nuts, wouldn't they? And, I got a hunch Chris Finch is a little more like Thibs and maybe Ryan. I don't know. He's somewhere in between, obviously. But I did get to hear Thibs's comments after they blew that one to the Wolves here the other night. That couldn't have been good for them. But I see they won last night, so they're 500 with that collection. That is not a good team. But anyway, you know what? What's the deal with Beasley? He came back, he couldn't make a shot, and now they put him on the
he's got hamstring. It says so. Yeah, I don't know what the final injury report is for Monday night's game. First game with fans back. By the way, we talked to Ethan Casson here in a little bit, but we got fans there, fans for the Wild game. But yeah, he's it sounds like it was doubtful. The Sunday report was doubtful for Beasley, Rubio, and Jalen Noel turned an ankle in that Saturday game. Plus they're already out Russell. So
all those things are good, but they're only 2/5 of the way to having a starting lineup. Really, I'm not a big Russell guy, but Edwards is real. He's going to be really good. If I like the fact that Edwards is, he's got Cat back and he's playing with him, but he's not intimidated by the fact that it's okay if he takes 22 shots and Cat only takes 19. He's got enough ego in his game, which I like. And, he's got to make shots, obviously, but he's worth coming. There's some hope here.
There's some hope. McDaniels, I like McDaniels too. I mean, the two rookies they drafted this year, they've got a chance.
Which probably makes up for their first draft.
Jared Culver.
To get Jared Culver when you could have had Tyler Hero at the 11th pick and had somebody who actually makes shots. But I don't know. It's they still have the worst. I think they're Detroit's trying to catch them.
Yeah,
but they still have the worst record in the league, which is I don't know what we're going to do there.
And a 40% chance of keeping their pick. And we'll see. Yeah. We'll see if they get a crack at Jalen Suggs.
Meanwhile, the Wiggy-led Warriors only lost by 53 the other night. Did you see that?
Wiggy's come back to earth a little bit. I don't know if you followed his stats lines. I love the early in the year. Andrew Wiggins transformation. Andrew Wiggins, new man.
Great defense. They're trying to tell us what a great defender he is.
Yeah.
His stat line since his first couple of years is just basically flat. It's the same. It's all the time. And, but then again, he plays and D'Angelo Russell doesn't. So that's one difference. Right? I mean, one thing about Wiggy, he plays. He's always in the lineup. So, yes.
Well, we'll see if the paying customers at Target Center tonight see Cat play a full 48. Never know. All right, Patrick. Appreciate it.
I think it's time for a commentary on this Chris Finch, players. How come he can't be like Thibs and take better care of his players?
Man? I think you're just the man to do that, Patrick.
All right.
All right, Patrick. We'll do this again next week. I appreciate it.
I'm Nyla Jean Myers, Senior Assistant Sports Editor at the Star Tribune. Thank you for listening to Strip Sports Daily Delivery. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast and our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
Happy to be joined on Daily Delivery right now by Ethan Casson, CEO of the Lynx, Timberwolves, all that good stuff. Return to fans, Ethan, Monday night. Today, as it were, Timberwolves are going to have fans in the stands for the first time in more than a year. I'd like to hear from you on how we got to that point, how we feel about that, what the protocols are in place, things of that nature. So maybe we can just start open-ended. Welcome to the show, first of all.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michael. And it's amazing to think I think we're about at the 13-month mark now, right? Since, the NBA suspended play and Timberwolves fans, were not able to come back for the remaining part of our regular season last year. I think there were 9 home games left on our schedule. And here we are 13 months later, and April 5th against the Kings, we'll finally be able to get some of our season ticket members back into the building, some of our avid fans back into the building. And to think of the journey that we had to go through, along with the other teams, and working closely with the governor's office and the Minnesota Department of Health and our leagues, it's an exciting, kind of inflection point. There's a lot of work left to be done to keep people safe. Certainly buildings are going to be limited relative to capacity, but the idea, Michael, that we've got fans coming back, the thing that brings everyone together is sports. And yet it's the thing that we weren't able to bring people back together to do in and around sports is neat. I know we'll have our game on April 5th. I believe the Wild are home on April 5th and the Twins have their home opener on April 8th with high school tournaments in between. So fans back at live sporting events is here, and we're just really, really excited and enthusiastic about the future.
What have you heard from your season ticket holders, especially those that are going to have the opportunity to either be at the April 5th game or be at a future game, as the season goes into May this year with the late start?
Yeah, we've made it a point to stay in touch with these folks, the entire way. And to be really candid with you, for most of that window of time, it was more to do with checking in on them as people and their families and their kids and what was happening with them in their communities and their jobs. So many other things that were so much more important than basketball games and coming back to Target Center. But as we saw a little bit of the light at the end of the tunnel, we began to survey. We began to kind of, get a sense and a pulse on what are people really comfortable with. We're going to learn a lot, Michael. I think all of the teams here in the first few weeks around those that are really comfortable coming back, whether that's because they've been vaccinated or they just feel the social distancing protocol and the masks is something they're very comfortable with. And those that are just quite not ready yet, to make that step towards, public events. So great feedback. And I think what you're going to see certainly inside of our building is a very, walk, run kind of approach to it. And with only 12 games left and a team that's not going to qualify for the playoffs, we're really going to fixate on those 12 home games and make it the best 12 home games we can make it, the safest games we can make it, and really start to integrate some experiential, some mobile things that are going to be new to the future of Target Center and fans coming to games.
Remind me, is it about 3,000 that you expect to have in the building? Is that about the number?
So the 3,000 number has been we're allowed to go up to. And you asked earlier, what kind of modeling have we been doing? We've modeled everything, right? We've modeled what it would entail to bring back people around the court. And with NBA protocol, right, we've got to allow a 30-foot distance between the benches and the fans and a 30-foot capacity from the courts back on the other side of it. And we looked at what that would entail. We're not going to open up the courtside level this year because of those restrictions. I think it's the right decision to make, certainly to keep our players and those around the court safe. We're not going to open up the upper level, Michael. We're going to really fixate and concentrate, be very intentional about the lower bowl. So for us, we're really looking at a capacity that we feel really strongly about based on the number of folks that have already opted in for tickets, single game ticket sales here in the last couple of days of anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 is what we can actually put in the lower bowl safely. And I'll be honest, I think that's going to create a great home court advantage. I think these folks are going to be kind of on top of the game and have a chance to be back at Target Center, be in a lower bowl. Pods of 2 and 4 are critical. And that's how we're going to approach these games.
As you have been, planning on the business side, other things, it feels like a lot of teams are gearing, that a lot of the work that has been done is really gearing for the 21-22 season, NFL, just making sure NBA and NHL, everything is in place so that you can have a safe return and have kind of a quote unquote normal season, starting in next fall. Is that how you're planning right now? I know the pandemic, I know COVID can throw us a lot of curveballs, but as you plan business wise, are you thinking, best case scenarios and, even just normal case scenario that you'll have a full building to start the year next year? And is that how you're planning your business right now?
It absolutely is. You're right. None of us have a crystal ball and can make a determination of what, a home opener at Target Center, middle of October will look like. That said, we all believe, I think the leagues and each of the teams within each of these states around the country believe that the progress we're going to make even by the week, Michael, is gonna really set us up for great success, assuming that everyone continues, the discipline of social distancing and masks, and understanding that we've got a role in all of it. So what we'll do specific to our business and with our team is twofold. We will plan and absolutely are anticipating a building that can have fans in it at its capacity. At the same time, what we've gotten really good at is contingency. So we've already built the contingencies. We know what social distancing looks like at 6 feet. We know what social distancing looks like right now if the guidelines were to change to 3 feet. We know if we needed to pivot and go to vaccination, areas in the building, right? Based on verification cards, et cetera, what possibly that would look like. We've already started to determine what does a premium experience look like moving forward. So the answer, the long-winded answer is we really are anticipating full crowds and a quote unquote back to as normal as you can be considering the circumstances. But the contingency plans have already been built, will continue to be built throughout the summer. And we have the Lynx. So the Lynx gives us another great chance to watch fan behavior, learnings from what that looks like. And as the Lynx fan base is able to get, more bodies into Target Center, as will Twins games, as will United games. And we'll kind of, lean on all of each other here locally to get us back to a completion of arenas and stadiums.
Last thing for you, Ethan, appreciate your time today. As you've evaluated, other teams that are having fans back already, or that have been earlier to jump into this because guidelines and states are different. I guess A, what have you learned from them? And B, as you thought about like what the experience has been lacking inside an arena without fans, how do you sum that up? Just the environment that has been missing, and then will return, at least to a degree on Monday.
Yeah. The first part of your question is a great one. I mean, I would look at it in maybe two buckets. One, to have the NBA as a resource, to have teams that exist and play in states that have moved this along quicker. Not saying that that's better or worse. That's just their legislation and what their officials felt most comfortable with. Those learnings are so critical to all of us. I mean, the best practices of this, frankly, the more successful each of those states and teams are across all the leagues, the quicker we can get back to more normal here, even in our state and what we're trying to achieve. So that NBA resource and our teams and leagues and teams, we were watching the NFL throughout the course of the year, as was baseball. Now everyone else has been watching us. So the shared best practices of how to get people back into buildings safely has been unbelievable. And then I would just say, and I've said this to you before in interviews, even in kind of offline, the Twins, the Timberwolves, the Vikings, the Wild, the United, the Lynx. We've been hosting a weekly call amongst the team presidents from March. And it hasn't stopped, as recently as this week. So having that forum with people that I think very highly of, that are incredible operators for their teams, that live in this market, and we're all sharing with each other, in a lot of cases, talking to the governor's office at the same time, that's been critical to us all getting to a point where, again, starting Monday, fans are back at arenas and stadiums here in the Twin Cities.
Ethan, great stuff. Appreciate it. Good luck Monday and going forward. Hoping for better times ahead in all directions. So I definitely appreciate that.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Let's end quick with the cooler. Wild, 2 big wins over Vegas in the last few nights to really solidify themselves as the top 3 team in the Western Division this year, but does not get any easier. 2 against Colorado coming up, and now we find out, starting tonight, we start to find out, are they just a top 3 team, or can they really contend for an actual division title this year? I think there's 6 points back of Colorado right now. Wild has got 1 game in hand, so a good showing in these next 2 could put them in the position to maybe, be in that top spot. But at the very least, they are top 3, and we'll see what they are made of when they play Colorado. Good show coming Tuesday. I'm sure we'll talk plenty of college basketball coming off of the men's NCAA championship game Monday night, Baylor and Gonzaga, and plenty more to get to as well after the first night of fans in the stands for the Wolves and the Wild. Thanks for joining me on Daily Delivery. We'll see you again on Tuesday.